Hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sandra, and today I'm going to be talking about the latest installment in Holly Black's Folk of the Air world, The Stolen Heir. There will be no spoilers in this segment, so do not fret. I will give you plenty of heads up before I go into spoilers, and I'll also be sure to note it in the chapter selections so that you can skip around the video if you want. The Stolen Heir is the first book in Holly Black's latest duology, and it follows Wren, who is the daughter of the cursed Lady Nor and Lord Gerald of the Court of Teeth, in the 8 years since the Battle of the Serpent, which involved Jude from The Queen of Nothing and the Cruel Prince trilogy. The Lady Nor has reclaimed the Ice Needle Citadel, which is the castle of the Court of Teeth. Lady Nor is planning her revenge on Elfhame and Jude and Cardan. Her and her husband are in possession of an ancient relic that enables them to create this undead monster army that they will use against them. There's just one hiccup. The Lady Nor is cursed in that she must listen to and obey any of Wren's wishes. So suffice to say, she will do anything to break out of that curse, which is not limited to killing her daughter. This comes as no surprise because Wren has suffered many years of daily neglect and abuse from both of her parents, which then continued into her teenage years. Wren was a changeling and placed in a human family's home where she had a good, happy life until Nor and Gerald came back and stole her away. They were absolutely horrible to Wren, and frankly, they were never fit to be parents. But to avoid her fate and save herself from them, Wren escaped the Court of Teeth and fled to the human realm, and she ends up living feral, alone in the woods. She lives in abject poverty and filth, and from time to time she looks in on her human family. One time she's visited by Oak, who is the younger brother of Jude. He's really the only one that ever showed her any kind of kindness, and the book essentially kicks off when they reconnect again in the present. Oak is tall, handsome, sly, and he has schemes of his own that he keeps hidden away from Wren. The relationship between the two of them is steeped in suspicion and precarious at best. They agree to help each other with their personal quests, and that is when the story really kicks off. From this point onward, I'm going to speak freely about The Stolen Heir and go into deeper discussion about parts that really moved me or that really struck me. Character arcs, different scenes that I really loved. Skip ahead if you don't want to be spoiled. This story is dark in that it explores some pretty grim themes around family betrayal and child abuse. The heroine, Wren, is basically living like a wild animal when we meet her at the beginning of the book. She wears old rags, essentially. She eats scraps that she happens upon. She has odds and ends items that she whisked away from her past lives, and that's basically her only possessions. She basically just barely gets by day to day, and she has a lot of deep hurt and sadness in her heart for the lost human family that she had, and then the lost family that she never had a chance at with her so-called birth parents. In the beginning of the book, she is visited by a storm witch who has been sent by the Lady Nor to pay her a visit. It's basically like an assassination attempt. So Oak shows up and intervenes and saves the day, and that is when they join up and become a part of each other's plans of survival and getting what they want. Wren basically wants to feel safe and be happy again, and Oak wants to rescue his father, Maddock, the Red Cap, from the dungeons where he is in the clutches of the Lady Nor and Lord Gerald. He sees an opportunity with Wren since Nor is under the curse where she must obey any of Wren's commands, so he sees that as an opportunity for him to have this weapon to use against her to get what he wants, which is his father freed. This story is dark and dangerous and makes for a really great winter read. It takes the characters into the north where it's snowy and frigid and cold. There's so much atmosphere. There are really horror-inspired elements to the story too, especially when they happen upon this Forest of the Stone, which is like a cursed village of trolls. In that part of the book, Wren happens upon this hidden room with a locked chest that has these bloodied, massacred travelers that ran into the trolls, and it's just these bodies that are bloodied and rotting, stuffed into chests. It's kind of a horrific scene if you really think about it. There's this undead monster army, these stick creatures that use poison arrows and can just be created on a whim by Nor. There's various poisonings. There's duels to the death. If you loved the Cruel Prince trilogy, or any of Holly Black's other work, you know what I'm talking about. There is danger around every corner, but it's always balanced with humor and romantic intrigue and action. So even if this intrigue is very adversarial and not founded on trust between the main characters, the way that she writes romance is intoxicating. The tension just wraps itself around you and makes you crave more of it, and her books rarely have anything more than a stolen kiss. Here's an example line that I really, really loved. "Kissing him is profane. It gives me all the horrible satisfaction of smashing a crystal goblet." It's just that kind of beautiful, lush writing that Holly Black is so good at. In Holly's world of fairy, the fae creatures cannot lie, so there's a lot of speech and dialogue done in riddles that can be interpreted in different ways than you anticipate, so that is always fun trying to figure out. This means that it's possible to guess or predict what's going to happen in the story, but it's also satisfying that you can piece it together and just kind of sit back and enjoy the story and watch things unfold. One of my favorite scenes is when Wren and Oak are children and they're hiding in Oak's bedroom, and they're playing a game very similar to Pass the Pigs, where you instead roll these tiny little foxes and the position that they land in will net you different points. Oak is described as being fox-like, his eyes, his cunning, and we all know that foxes have a reputation for being tricksters and for being very dishonest. And so one of the things that I love about Holly Black is you can have the biggest hints and giveaways that someone is not wholly to be trusted, but with the plot devices such as the Fae not being able to lie, so Oak not being able to lie, it's really interesting and fun to see how your expectations will be subverted in that way. It requires a lot of creativity and some level of unpredictability, but it always makes for a really creative, sticky situation. I also love any revel or party setting that she writes. She communicates so much in like the briefest scene. There's so much attraction and angst in the shortest like slow dance scene, where it literally just makes you yearn for more. There was a scene between Wren and Oak where Oak pays Wren a compliment and for being so angry, and he says, "It can be brave to hate. Sometimes hate is like hope." Between never experiencing a genuine compliment and being treated the way she was as a child and all throughout her life, I would be suspicious of some handsome guy complimenting me too. I don't blame her for being suspicious of people. She has the thought in the book, "I understand what's terrifying about his charm. He seems entirely open when he is unknowable. Every smile is painted on a mask." And that quote says so much. That's how she thinks of not just him, but literally anyone she feels is in a constant state of deceiving her and is up to no good. What broke my heart in this book was how she was treated for so long every day as a child after being stolen away from her human family. She was tricked into thinking that her human family was disgusted and horrified by her and wanted nothing to do with her. When they found out that she was a changeling and saw her exposed in her true form. And then we see how her so-called parents took her and abused her, never loving her and being incredibly cruel to her when she was a child. There was one scene in particular when she was recounting the time immediately after being taken from her human family, and she was physically incapable of not crying. And so Nor and Gerald go through all of these different hoops to try and get her to stop crying. They try tempting her with sweets, with jewelry. There's a scene where her father gets her a diamond necklace, and I have to read this because reading this part moved me and it was so deeply sad. Then he came to me with a necklace of diamonds as cold and beautiful as ice. When I put it on, my eyes shone, my hair sparkled, and my skin shimmered as though glitter had been poured over it. I looked wondrously beautiful, but when he told me to stop crying, I couldn't. Then he became angry, and he told me that if I didn't stop, he would turn my tears to glass that would cut my cheeks. And that's what he did. But I cried until it was hard to tell the difference between tears and blood. To cry as a child until you do not know whether what you are crying is tears or blood from your cheeks being cut is so heartbreaking. There's another part after Wren and Oak have snuck back into the Ice Needle Citadel, and she's essentially having PTSD. She's experiencing PTSD by being back in this horrible place. And let me pull up the quote here. She says, I have a strange dissonance of memory. I am walking through these halls as a child. I am walking through my unparents' house at night, moving like a ghost. That's what I've been for years. An unsister, an undaughter, an unperson, a girl with a hole for a life. It's just so heartbreaking for someone to think of themselves this way, to think so little of their lives. And I think that's what Holly Black writes so good, not with just the heroines of like The Cruel Prince and The Stolen Heir, but The Coldest Girl in Cold Town, The Book of Night, her debut adult fantasy. Another quote that illustrates how Wren thinks of the world is, with a shiver, I take up the mirror from the dresser. In this hair and with this dress, I look pretty, the kind of pretty that allows monsters to deceive people into forests, into dances where they will find their dooms. It's everything is a facade to her. Like, she is so cynical about everything. She is so skeptical and suspicious and does not trust anyone or anything. And that's so sad. There was another scene that broke my heart. It's when they were running from danger and she injured her foot. Oak gets down on his knees to help her. And she has this thought, since I left the mortal world, no one has cared for my wounds but me. The gentleness of his touch makes me feel too much, and I have to turn my face lest he see. It's just, like that got me, because to have to live so guarded with such a thick skin, it's just heartbreaking. Like so many other people, I absolutely loved The Cruel Prince. I loved this enemies to lovers dynamic between Jude and Cardan. I don't think I'll ever get enough of that, and all of the fan art is so beautiful, depicting the two of them. But I am so ready to see the Oak and Wren fan art, because I didn't think that Holly Black could do more with, showing different kinds of heroines, but Wren is really special and unique all on her own. She almost has this anti-hero arc in The Stolen Heir, which is, I'm all for that. If there is a woman that has been mistreated and experienced horrible things in her life, and she steps into that power and owns it and starts projecting that anger and that rage and that revenge on others, I kind of like to see it. Like, I'm all for seeing a hero take that kind of arc. And then since this is a duology, I'm really curious to see where it goes. In this book, because we find out that Wren isn't human, she's a changeling, but she's also not exactly fae. She was literally created out of sticks and bone and some blood and some magic by the Storm Witch to be just created out of just other matter, that she doesn't even feel human. So it's almost symbolic, like she herself views herself now as a monster. Even the terrible, terrible things that happen to her toward the end of The Stolen Heir, where she gets her tongue cut off. It was such a grotesque scene. But she gets her tongue cut out so that she cannot speak and command Lady Nor. She's in pain, but she just sucks it up and accepts it. And then when she finds the bit of bone and grows her tongue back, it's almost like she's willing to experience any kind of pain because she doesn't think of herself as human or fae anymore, if that makes sense. She's a very complicated, complex heroine. The fact that Oak had entrusted her with the bridle, which has the power of enslaving anyone, and she turns on Oak at the end of the book and puts that bridle on him. How the bridle works reminded me of the Shadow and Bone Netflix adaptation. It's the scene where the Darkling puts the antler amplifier on Alina, and you can see the amplifier just fuse together with Alina's clavicles, like her collarbone, and it's just sticking out through her flesh, and it just looks so grotesque and abhorrent. That's what the bridle reminds me of, because when you slip it on someone and you enslave them, it can leave scars in their flesh, and so it just kind of ends up digging into their skin and burying itself in their flesh. And the fact that Wren did this to Oak, knowing what it could do, that was just such a turn that her character took. I am so mad that we're going to have to wait like 2 years for the next book to come out. The way that Holly Black left this book with Oak screaming after Wren when she visited him in the Court of Teeth dungeons while he is wearing this bridle, and he just wants to talk to her to communicate and explain his side of the story and what happened. And she has this thought: "Coward that I am, I flee. My heart thundering, my hands shaking, but I can't pretend that I don't like the sound of him screaming my name." I'm like, that is such a turn for her to take. Like, that is the anti-hero element coming out. She just kind of embraces this view of herself that she's not human or fae, and she's just a monster. There was a scene earlier in the book when she had this thought that, "Here's what I learned in the Court of Teeth. It seemed, in the beginning, that fighting back would only bring me further pain. That's the lesson they wanted me taught, but soon I realized I would be hurt anyway. Better to hurt someone else when I had a chance." So she takes these lessons that Nor and Gerald ingrained into her in the most brutal, cruel ways that they could do to a child, and she is now living this as like her mantra. She's going around with this idea of it's better to hurt other people before they hurt you. There's just so much that I could say about this book. Let me grab a copy, but I annotated so much. There were just so many scenes between her and Oak, or internal dialogue that she just thoughts that she was having about herself or her experience growing up, everything that she suffered through. And there's just so much that I could talk about. And I cannot believe that we have to wait 2 years to find out the end of this story with Oak, but I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. So I'm so over the moon that Holly Black is doing another duology in the Folk of the Year, because it's such a special series. It's one of the series that got me back into reading, particularly fantasy, 3 years ago, so I am so excited about it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that spoilery discussion about the book. Definitely comment and let me know what some of your favorite parts were, or what you thought of some of the things that I brought up, or what you think about Wren's character arc. I think it's really interesting what Holly Black has done with her. I'm all for scorned women stepping into their power, but I do want to have some kind of redemption for her and Oak. They have a lot of issues to work out, and I'm so interested to see where their little relationship goes. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more Jude and Carden in the next book. Love them so much. I would love to see them again, like a lot of scenes with them in the next book. So we shall see. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and the discussion, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Happy reading. Bye.